Alright, welcome back folks to Let's Play Resident Evil 4 while also skipping all the cutscenes and dialogue. My god, the context in this game is just so very heavy. Alright. Now... Oh, jeez. How is there lag this early? Man, alright. I think... Man, I've heard Capcom has actually been getting a really bad reputation for apparently just ports, and I guess this is just another one of them. And I never noticed this sign. Waterfall. Well, thank you for telling me that. Anyway, one little thing to point out here. If you're at this angle, you can come over here, get on the boat. I believe you can do this in the daytime as well, but the fish aren't as easy to see in anything besides rain. But you can actually take out the harpoons that you used in the boss fight and actually get fish with them. However, my inventory doesn't have any room, so I'm not going to take that fish. Anyway, another thing, I gotta wonder how many people just completely pass this by, because during the daytime the torches are not lit. There is a hidden merchant stand here. And not only is there a hidden merchant here where you can still get upgrades to a lot of your weapons, but you can also find a hidden treasure here among all the other free crap. You know, you have to wonder that since you pay the merchant, why does he just have like hidden jewels and stuff all over the place? Especially since he buys them. Imagine how much money it would actually save him if he had chosen to just like look around his vicinity. Anyway, I think I started this episode talking about setting the context set by games, although it was much more facetious than I'm about to talk about it. And I always have to wonder about how important is context to a game, and how important is the style.
Things on sale.
I always have to wonder how important it is the style in which the context is set. For example, this game has very brief cutscenes that are all very goofy, but it kind of all plays into the sort of like spooky but fun spooky. Like you can tell it's not taking itself too seriously, but the danger to Leon is still present. And I also have to point this out because people are going to look at me nuts. I have pretty much no room in my knapsack, as I'm sure you saw. So, not only am I going to sell one of each grenade, but I'm also going to sell handgun bullets because I have way too many of them. So, I'm going to cut things down to about 100 bullets. You know, 100 extra bullets, that's more than enough. Either way, we found some random items here. Now, as I was talking about context, and this game has, you know, short, goofy, spooky cutscenes. Then there's a game like Metal Gear Solid, where because much of its game is intended to be so pseudo political, they have to go into long spiels. You know, I also have to point out the frickin' the arsenal that the merchant has here. You guys, what is it? A Tommy gun? You know, you gotta wait until you beat the game to get that. You got Uzis here. Got what does this say? Assault rifle. You never get to use. All this artillery. He's got apparently he's ready to fight a damn army. Ain't nobody can stop this guy. He's better than every guy in your damn army. But anyway, that's kind of funny that Metal Gear Solid. Actually, I'm not gonna go on a spiel about Metal Gear Solid, but you know, like what context is appropriate to set for every game. You know, here it's goofy, kind of spooky, not too serious, but kind of serious. You know, which is kind of what I wish Resident Evil. Here it feels more deliberate than it does in other Resident Evils, where a lot of times it's like you are failing so horribly at being serious that it suddenly becomes hilarious. Whereas this game is just like, we're honestly not I'm not trying too hard, so just kind of laugh with us. Alright, anyway, we're gonna have some more head popping. And this guy, I of course have to keep my distance, and I'm sure people are gonna say, wait, you keep distance? Well, this guy, that freaking thing is worse than life itself. Oh my god, I died to a regular enemy. That was dumb. And you can see why I keep distance, because the opponent's antennae, or whatever that is, does quite a fair bit of damage. You know. And I think I was talking more about context, and I completely stopped talking about it because I keep getting interrupted by things that I'm actually kind of good at. So instead, I will ramble. You know, I think a lot of times the context set by narrative kind of is intended to set the tone for kind of the rest of the game, but a lot of times people have ignored that because, you know, there have been times when the idea of story in games was like, you can't combine them. There's not enough room. So a lot of times games that did have narrative, they had to freaking shapakum it down to... That was the dumbest wording. They intended to, like, condense it as much as they could for the sake of the game, because you know, if you're just working with text, a lot of times, why not read a book? Anyway, by the way, I did a practice run of this because not only was my narration awful, but I died like 12 times trying to do something stupid that I'm still going to try to do. But anyway, I found that out that I never knew in my entire life. And what are some other games? Like, a lot of times, you know, it's like we want to set it like a goofy TV show, a goofy anime. It's a little bit tricky to try to set it a mood like something that is in a completely different genre, like a TV show. It's like with a game, you're better off setting an experience, and a lot of times that's tricky when you're trying to compare the experience to like a non-interactive medium like a TV show or something. But a lot of times that can help to set a familiar tone where you're like, okay, I'm ready for this and this and that. And sometimes that helps. Sometimes that can help. You know, with P4, I kind of expected something out of a goofy high school anime that occasionally gets really serious. And that's kind of helping my my experience. But a lot of times that may not work as well, and wow, there's a lot of slowdown here. I heard a lot of people did not like... I remember before Resident Evil 5 was a big thing people complained about, this game was something that got on on the nerves of a lot of Resident Evil fanboys because they did not like the sudden change in style. And I remember them asking, where's this character? Where's this character? Where's this character? And I'm like, you know, Resident Evil games aren't very well known for narrative, you know. They're known for dumb context, and I think they kind of missed the point of a lot of the beginning of the context of this game, where they were basically, it's like, forget about all that shit, Umbrella's dead, you know, forget it, we're on to something else, you know. And I think a lot of people did actually enjoy the idea of that context being set, because I heard a lot of people really just hated the fact that it's like the same story over and over again, just different names around it. And I think I was talking... Ah, shit. Alright, got him. And I remember, and the reason I was talking about context is because something recently came to mind that I remember hearing this a lot. Story does not matter. And that was in the basically... I remember this specifically around like early 2000s gaming, and I think the reason that was because after Metal Gear Solid, after Final Fantasy VII, after Half-Life 1, everyone tried to be the next one of those. And because of that, there were so many games that attempted to imitate each of their individual styles that it's like, for God's sakes, try to make a good game before you're trying to make a good story. But I think what the big problem with a lot of those was not the fact that the story didn't matter, or hell, that even like that you can make an alright game but make a much better story. Sometimes that can work, especially since narrative is a big draw for a lot of games. But that wasn't the issue. The problem was the stories were crap, but they had such a heavy focus on them. It's one thing to have, you know, a story that is crap. It's another thing to have a story that's crap, but have it be a central focus. A good example of this is Metroid Other M. Metroid Other M Well, first of all, I will say that I have never played Metroid Other M. However, I do know what much of its narrative intended to do. And the issue with Metroid Other M is that because the story was a central focus, this is what people were excited about, to learn more about Samus, and people fucking hated the story. You know, when it's a focus, when it's what you spend a lot of time with, and you suck at it, that's possibly one of the worst things. That's when narrative, you should forget about narrative, because you can't do it. You know, they tell you don't try something, just because you know you'll fail, don't try it. Well, here's the thing. When people pay for it, they expect more. Anyway, since I rambled on about that a bit, I think I'll talk about something else. And one thing I'd like to talk about is when is memorization alright? This is the reason that I very jarringly went to that topic is because I'm about to face a boss battle, and the thing about boss battles in a lot of games is people are very, very forgiving for memorization. Now, if it's like stage by stage memorization, people become much more unforgiving, a la Super Meat Boy. But you know, I played games in Castlevania or Ninja Gaiden where the bosses are straight memorization. Like, it's not even a contest. It's like straight up memorization. But people are fine with it. It's like, it's part of the challenge. But then you play something else, like, say, like any number of crappy NES games, and, you know, you're like, what the hell? You know, it's like, what the hell? This is nothing but memorization. This is not a game that's fun or enjoyable, you know. But then you play something else, and it's like, well, it's part of the challenge. And I wonder, when is that okay? Like, like Battletoads or something. Battletoads, I think, is a very cathartic game, and I think it's very, very satisfying to play. But I'm not going to deny that it's pretty much memorization all the way through. And I think a lot of times what helps is to set a very firm context and of like what exactly you're fighting. For example, a game I like, in spite of the fact that it's pretty much memorization, is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It's pretty much memorization. But the thing about that game is that it sets a context. Ah, see that segue. And the context is you're a boxer. You know, it sets a context where it fits that that you would have to memorize the opponents. You would have to scout them ahead of time. And again, I point to context because, you know, in your mind, what's going on? You're being knocked out and you're contemplating retirement. You're basically being forced to the bottom of your boxing league. And but you know, you come back. But think about what might be going through your mind in a Castlevania game. You know, in that sort of game, you're wondering, what exactly is Simon Belmont doing? You know, is he just starting over again? No. You know, it's more like your journey has been interrupted, and you just, you know, you're like, I can't remember what game this was, but I think it was, sorry, I think I remembered that wrong. Give me a second. And in that situation, you're like, I shouldn't have to do this because Simon isn't going to have to do this. This isn't part of his journey. You know, a lot of times story, as I've said, a lot of times people say it's not important, particularly in older games. But there is some sense of context. And before, for a lot of games, it was like, well, this is like the arcade. And, you know, that pretty much is the case for a lot of older games. They were imitating arcade games, which is why a lot of games directly based on arcade games are pretty much bullshit memorization. But I think, again, what's, you know, is Simon dying? Is he really dying and then just literally coming back? You know, that's not happening. That's not what a hero does. But can a heroic boxer get forced in? Can a heroic boxer go down to the minor leagues and then come back up? Yes. But does it make sense that, you know, Ryu Hayabusa would essentially die and then repeatedly come back and get a time and time again? No. It just doesn't work that way. Anyway, as I'm sure you're wondering why the hell I'm not talking about this, it's because I am losing terribly at this. It's something that I've been trying to do and sucking at it. Oh my god. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to beat El Gigante, and this is not memorization. What this is AI manipulation, and this is always tricky. I've always said, or no, I've started saying a lot, that you should be able to beat any boss in any game with the worst weapon, and because that, I think, is more badass. I think it's a lot more badass to beat a bear with your bare hands, no pun intended, than it is to beat him with a machine gun. Because it's like, you beat a bear, but you had the tools to do it. What if you didn't have the tools to do it? And I think a big part of that is, you know, I don't know whether or not I'm just kind of tired of the super power fantasy, or I'm just not fond of games that are like unnecessarily easy. But I think a big part of that is the fact that this game is a game that constantly feeds you upgrades, that yes, you have to earn the upgrades because you have to pay for them, but at the same time, shit, I lost my train of thought there. You know, but at the same time, you're always guaranteed some bit of money, and I'm trying to do this without any health items. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. Okay. All right. And I've always wondered, again, what is actually, like, what makes a great boss experience? Like, a lot of times I've noticed, like, people's, like, top 10 bosses list, I've noticed how important story is, especially in, like, older games. Like, just the way the boss is set up, like Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time. The setup is great, but the boss himself is crap. It's the dumbest thing. Like, you fight Ganondorf, and how do you fight him? Fucking tennis. Yeah, you do the battle, and it's honestly not that intricate, not that, oh wow, he changed his priorities, alright. You know, it's not that interactive, or it is interactive, but it doesn't feel like Ganondorf doesn't exactly come off like an intimidating, oh wow. He does not approve of me cutting his heels. And like another thing that always topped the list was Mother Brain. And Mother Brain, you know, admittedly you say, well, Mother Brain's story hadn't been set up, Samus hadn't been set up, but no, like, you see, it has like a mini narrative to it. You see Mother Brain come up, you know, she's the big bad, you're finally there, you think you got her, and then she surprises the hell out of you and becomes much bigger. It's a very instant context, but at the same time, it is something that is most likely unexpected, and is actually very well set up. And I think that's something else I like to talk about with with games, is setup versus mechanics. You know, most of the top boss battles have great setups, but most of their mechanics are also crap, because their setups are so good that many times they don't worry about anything else. What was another one? Bowser has an awesome setup where the music in Super Mario World builds up and up and up and up and up, and then there he comes, right out of that clown car of his. Oh yeah, and by the way, I just beat El Gigante with only a knife. That's worth mentioning. Anyway, This game also has a lot of bosses which are pretty much all set up, but not really all that good mechanically. But I think a big reason of that is, like, I think it has to do with my preference for how I place boss battles. Like, I remember I disagreed with a friend of mine with, like, he was wondering, like, I was like, I don't like the Mega Man games all that much. And he was like, yeah, I know, 1 and 3 aren't that good. And I'm like, actually, it's 2 that I don't like that much. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I just didn't think it was that enjoyable. And I don't know. I think a big reason for that is, I'm saying this word too much. Context. You know, context for you all. I played Mega Man 1 before Mega Man before I played Mega Man 2 and 3, and I think that shaped a big of my opinion because, you know, I was not, you know, I didn't get hit with, what the hell? I thought these were insta-kill. I was never hit with the, you know, with the sudden realization of Mega Man, or like I didn't play 2 raw from, I didn't play 2 with no expectations. I played 2 after playing 1. And because of that, I knew kind of how to play the game. So I wasn't, like, hyper challenged by a lot of things. And also as I've said, I'm not fond of memorization, and I fucking hated the damn disciplining platforms in all the Mega Man games, because those get really obnoxious. Although the worst one is easily the one in frickin' Heatman stage. Man, I was all over the place in this part, wasn't I? Talking about random ass topics and then rambling on and on and on and on about them. And to think this is a second take. Most of the time in second takes you collect your thoughts, but nope, not this time. If you're wondering why it was a second take, it was because well, it wasn't that I sucked. I sucked here too, but the problem was, like, I wasn't organized. And admittedly, this is not organized at fucking all, but it's a lot more organized than that. Anyway, now in the actual game, we're in a church. And this is always supposed to set, like, the eerie cult is always, it seems to be a kind of a staple in horror games, although more, or, like, just horror in general. Most of the time it's, like, Satanists. But here it's, like, here it's, like, a mystery cult. Or a cult that you've never heard of. You know, and they kidnapped the president. This is a weird amalgamation of so many things. There's a weird cult horror movie. And they've kidnapped the president's daughter. That's a fucking action movie. I'm not even sure if that's an action movie cliche, but it's so dumb that it might as well be one. You know, and then they turn out to be controlling the villagers. Fuck, this is a strange amalgamation of everything B-movie. Which I think is why a lot of people actually appreciate this narrative more than a lot of the other narratives in the Resident Evil games. Whereas they try to be straight horror, and did the shading of the room just completely change? I swear that it did. What if I just ran out, now that I think about it? Well, whatever. Anyway. That made my voice feel funny. Now Ashley comes into play. I know a lot of people hate Ashley, but the funny thing is, most people, as a escort, it's funny that people actually think Ashley is one of the better mechanically sound. She's actually a mechanically sound escort. A lot of people say, like, she's pretty much the mechanically what you want out of an escort. But the problem is her attitude, and that's what a lot of people hate. You know, her attitude as being, you know, entitled to needing to be rescued. I think that's what a lot of people despise.
I'll take.
Anyway, we are at the end of chapter 2-1, and for some reason this picture of Leon always looked particularly feminine. It looks like they took the same face model from Ashley and put it on Leon, which always made me laugh a bit. But anyway, next time we'll take on chapter 2-2. And now that I think about it, oh yeah, that cabin in that picture? I guess we'll have to figure out. Well, what the fuck am I thinking? I'm playing this game assuming that you've already played this game. So you know what that fucking cabin's about. Shit.